Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Chainsaw Reacts podcast, episode number 48. And today, guys, we are only covering one topic on the podcast, and that is Suicide Squad spoiler review / discussion. You have been warned. If you have not seen Suicide Squad, click away. This is my spoiler heavy review / discussion for Suicide Squad. If you haven't seen the film, click away now. Do not listen to the podcast. If you haven't seen the film, do not go into the view more in the description. There'll be time starts for all the things I'm talking about, which will include spoilers. And do not go in the comment section of this video because there will be spoilers there as well from people listening to the podcast and giving their thoughts on the spoilers in this film. You've been warned. Okay, let's jump into it now. Which the first thing, which I really wanted to talk about really bad in my non-spoiler review, but I was unable to because it's a spoiler. So here it is now. The first thing we're going to get into, everyone's talking about it, the villain. And who is the villain? Enchantress. Oh my god. Shock, shock, shockity, shock, shock, shock. Not really. But I knew right away after I saw the Meet Enchantress clip, I knew that Enchantress was the villain because the way it ended was that Amanda Waller says to Enchantress, okay, we want Dr. Moon back, and Enchantress just looks at Amanda Waller, and Amanda Waller looks back. Black screen. I'm like, oh my god. After it cut to black, if the scene continues, Enchantress is going to say, no, I'm not going to turn back, and she's not going to turn back, and then she goes away, and then the movie starts, the villain, and then boom, we call in the Suicide Squad. I was wrong on that prediction, but I was right, because Enchantress is the villain. And everyone's saying this. Critics, fans, the majority of them at least. The majority of critics who either liked or hated this film, the majority of fans who liked or hated this film, are all unanimously saying for the most part, this is one of the worst villains we've ever had in a comic book movie. Not just DC, including everything. Marvel Studio films, Marvel Fox, DC, anything that's a comic book movie, it is one of the worst villains we've ever seen, and I do have to agree to some extent. Now, for me personally, I think there is a few things they could have done in this film to change our perspective of Enchantress for us to, at least for more of us to at least accept her as being the main villain. But unfortunately, the way it's handled on screen, it makes it to be just pretty bad. The first thing that I noticed that they could have changed and really gave us some more in-depth of what, basically why she's saying this to her brother when she basically infects this guy with her brother and puts her brother in some random body. And she says the line, back a long time ago, we were worshipped by civilization. We were worshipped by humanity. Now they worship machines. They don't, the technology, that's what it's implying, how everything's changed because now we worship technology and machines and everything like that. And back then she's implying that me and you, brother, we were worshipped by these beings. We were worshipped by these humans. So in that instance, instead of just saying the line and then we just hear it as an audience and we go, okay, show us a flashback. We see a ton of flashbacks of Harley Quinn and the Joker. We see a flashback of Deadshot. We see flashbacks of El Diablo. We see these flashbacks. So give us a flashback to back when her and her brother, who you could be different actor and actress who play Incubus, I think that's the character's name, and Enchantress, and show them being worshipped back long time ago when she was first around. Show them being worshipped. And then show now when she becomes Enchantress and show, well, we got the scene in that war room where they're terrified of her, but show us maybe a little bit more of them not caring about her and them not worshipping her, and then she feels like everything's changed. When I was around back then, I was worshipped. Now no one cares about me. Show us that angle, and then I can more believe the response to her brother when she says, they worship machines, so I'm going to build a machine to destroy them. I think showing a flashback of her being worshipped, then to now, more of the setup of where she's not cared about. No one cares about her anymore. People think she's a freak, and they don't want nothing to do with her. Then I can kind of see more of that angle. Unfortunately, they did not do that. Let's talk about the third act, which everybody loves to talk about. This is where everyone goes to. This is the reason why she's one of the worst villains, because the way the third act goes. Unfortunately, the third act is this. Her standing, doing some type of belly dance, a type of like inflatable arm tube guy, man, in one of those car stores, this little dance, creating this machine that's going to kill the world, and she's doing this dance, And then when it comes to the Suicide Squad finally approaching her before the big showdown in the film, the big grand finale fight, villains versus even more villain, I guess, the way she moves, she turns around and looks at the Suicide Squad. Her head does not move, but the rest of her body is doing this little jiggle motion thing like a belly dancer. I guess because she's still sending power to the machine, which we don't know how the freak it works because they didn't give any explanation how this machine works. I guess it just clouds the entire world because there's the small shot we saw of it. It's spreading out. Looks like it's just going to cover the world in blackness and it's going to kill everything. I don't know. But she's still doing this move while she's trying to give these this dialogue to the Suicide Squad team, and it looked really uncomfortable because, number one, she looks ridiculous. If she would have stood there and just had this epic, amazing stance, and then looking at the Suicide Squad and giving these lines, I would have believed it more. And on top of that, if you would have changed some of the dialogue she was saying before the final showdown to a little bit more stronger lines, like more powerful and more impactful lines, I think that we would have accepted it more, but unfortunately, they didn't do that. Now to the other side of the villain, Incubus. I believe that's her brother's name. I'm just going to say the brother from now on, okay? The brother doesn't do much in this film. When the brother becomes his former self, his demonic self, witchcraft self or whatever, he destroys a train. You see it in the trailer. He kills a couple people. He's destroying cops and cop cars and taking out helicopters with these tentacles or something like that. And that's basically it. I wish they would have shown a little bit more of him basically doing more, because basically it was just Enchantress just doing this dance, creating a machine. Then you see one quick shot of her turning humans into these creatures that basically are just for the Suicide Squad to fight before they get to the big baddie at the end. But the brother didn't really do much, and I think that was another main concern, is that this brother is ginormous compared to Enchantress. Now, I think Enchantress is more powerful than her brother. It kind of seemed that way, the way they kind of set up the two characters, but her brother didn't do much besides just destroy a couple things, and that's really it. I wish they would have showed her brother maybe doing a couple more powers or something like that for us to go, okay, this is really going to be a big threat later on, but they just don't show much. I think it's once again cutting issues where the editing came in, they cut down this film. I think that this film was probably longer, and probably just more stuff with the villain side, but they cut down to have more screen time for the Suicide Squad. I'm not really sure, but I think overall, change a few things, change a few lines, stop her from wiggling around and dancing, explain what the hell the machine is. They never really do. And on top of that, just show more of her character besides her Dr. Moon side where she's a human and normal. Show more of Enchantress's backstory, and then we can kind of see where the switch is and why she turns against Amanda Waller and all of that. And so we get more of a sense of where her character's coming from. It just felt like a complete, really quick switch. There are certain aspects of Enchantress that is cool, but I think the way it was handled, especially in the third act, could have been handled better. I did like her fighting the Suicide Squad. I think that was cool, but I think that they could have just handled it better with just developing her character a little bit more, setting it up, and then when the third act comes, get more explanation of what she's doing and basically showing her true powers, because she just fought the Suicide Squad hand to hand basically. She really didn't do much in terms of her magical powers. So I felt like that could have been handled a little bit better, but yes, this villain, not so good, could have been handled better. There are a few things that could have changed that they could have worked. They could have added in literally a minute of a flashback of her being worshipped, and then add maybe 30 or 45 more seconds of where we get to see people just mocking her and they don't care about Enchantress, they don't give a shit. And then we get to see a little bit more of her seeing the humongous change from when she was around back then to now, to kind of get more of the of her side of everything and why she completely turns and goes for her brother. So I really wish that was handled better. But yeah, it is definitely one of the worst comic book villains we've ever had in a comic book movie. So let's just hope that Suicide Squad 2, which I'll be talking about last for possible sequel ideas at the very end of this podcast, hopefully they'll fix that for sure. Next up, I do want to talk about, which I unfortunately did not cover in my non-spoiler. I could have, but I completely forgot about it. Batman. Batman is in this film, and the unfortunate thing is the majority of the stuff you saw in the trailers for Batman was shown in the film. Now, what's really cool, they did, as far as I know, they did not show any of the Batman versus Deadshot quick fight at all in the actual trailers itself. That was pretty awesome seeing Deadshot with her daughter his daughter going in the alleyway. Batman and the way Batman swoops down, oh my god, I'm like, holy shit, that is Batman. And then he comes down, him and Deadshot have a quick little fight. His daughter gets in the way, and then he surrenders, and Batman handcuffs him, and then lets the cops take him in. That was a pretty cool scene to see Batman interact with Deadshot. Potentially could set up something in the Batman solo film. Not really sure. The Batman, Joker, Harley Quinn, Lamborghini sequence, I think was pretty cool as well. The majority of it was shown in the trailers and clips released online. The only thing that was not shown is Batman diving into the water and punching Harley Quinn in the face when she tries to knife him, which was pretty funny because she basically was pretending to be knocked out, and then she completely rises up and tries to slash him, and then he just slow punches her in the face. I don't condone violence against women, but it was pretty funny because it's Batman and he's basically fighting a criminal underwater. And you see a quick shot of him carrying her to the Batmobile, which is shown in the trailer, but then he puts her on top of the Batmobile and he checks her pulse, and I guess she wasn't breathing because he goes down, and it looks like, why is Batman kissing Harley Quinn? Oh, he's giving her mouth to mouth to wake her up, and then she, of course, grabs the back of his head like they're kissing, and he stopped that and all that kind of stuff, so it was cool to see that. And of course, the ending, the mid-credits scene with Batman and Amanda Waller, which was pretty badass, setting up more Justice League. That's how Bruce Wayne gets intel on the Flash, and he gets intel on Aquaman. That was pretty interesting because he could have got this intel on his own. I think he could have really got it. But the thing is, Amanda Waller gives it to him. So it's setting up that relationship because, especially in the Justice League animated show, Amanda Waller and Batman do not see eye to eye at all in the animated show. So it's really interesting to see in the mid-credits scene they kind of set up a relationship, but I guarantee you Amanda Waller is going to screw him over. Amanda Waller might pop up in Justice League, I'm betting, because when the team gets formed together, I bet Amanda Waller's called in or something, or she goes and meets Bruce Wayne for a scene or two or something like that in the film. That'd be kind of cool to continue that, but to set that small little interaction between the two of them, it seems like it's not really like friendship, just more of acquaintances. Like, they're not on the friendship level, and I don't think they ever will be, but it was cool to see that setup there for Batman and Amanda Waller. So, nice setup for Justice League. I do have to applaud DC for that. That was pretty cool. Next thing we're going to talk about real quick. Pun. The Flash cameo. Unfortunately, this was spoiled about a week or a week and a half before the film came out. And it really is a very fast, I know, no pun intended, cameo. Captain Boomerang's flashback where he's getting set up a little bit in the film. He's robbing a bank or something like that, and he goes and takes out the other guy that's running with the bag full of stuff they stole, and then the Flash shows up. You see the blue lightning, and then boom, the Flash shows up for a couple of seconds. You get to see the costume. I'm not really sure if he's wearing the costume that is in the trailer for Justice League and the picture officially released for Justice League, but the suit looks pretty cool, but it went by pretty quick. I know, another pun, but it's not a pun. It literally is a very fast cameo, and I really wish it was a little bit more developed, but I mean, Barry Allen does have a line in the film, so I do like that, but I really wish that this cameo was not given away. I don't know how it got out, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if it was officially revealed, like, oh, the Flash is in it. You could go see the movie, get your tickets. The Flash is in it. He's barely in the film. His cameo is basically nothing compared to Batman's cameo. Batman has a pretty decent cameo, but the Flash has none, basically compared to Batman. But it is pretty cool to see him in the outfit, and I can't wait to see more setting up Justice League. And also, the Flash cameo does kind of set up a little bit of Captain Boomerang and the Flash's relationship. The way it was kind of said in this version of the film, I don't know 100% sure if there's more to Captain Boomerang talking about the thing that caught him, which is the Flash. But the way he said it in the film, that this red streak or the streak or something basically captured him. He didn't know what was happening. It sounded like to me, however he was talking about it, that he doesn't know who the Flash is. He doesn't know who it is. So it's setting up to possibly Captain Boomerang popping up in the Flash solo film. Probably not as the main villain, but popping up as a character, because we got to set that up a little bit, because Captain Boomerang is a Flash villain, so that's pretty cool. Next up, I do want to talk about is Harley Quinn. Now, this is like I was saying in my non-spoiler review, this is our first ever live-action appearance of the character, and I think Margot Robbie did a phenomenal job as Harley Quinn. I really dug her portrayal. I love her. I love her craziness and her and just over the topness and her one-liners and the way she's able to kind of be the funster of the group. And she doesn't take anything seriously, not really. But there are moments where we get to see her human side, especially when Joker's helicopter crashes, and we know Joker's not dead. But in her mind, she lost her puddin', as she would say. And the one quick thing before, and the one quick shot of her on top of the police car or whatever car it was, before the Suicide Squad came out of the building, you saw on her face where she lost everything. She lost her one true love, essentially. And it really showed her human side of her, and it was a really special moment for the film, in my personal opinion, because it really showed a human side of Harley for a brief moment. It's very brief, and there's other times like that too where you get to see a more softer side of Harley, but it is still Harley Quinn. But that one quick shot before the Suicide Squad walk out of that building and she's sitting on top of that vehicle, that shot of her is just, it is so moving for me as a Harley Quinn fan, because she literally thinks Joker is gone. He's dead and he's never coming back. A beautiful moment. I really do like the quick the quick flashbacks in showing her being Harleen. I believe that was her original name before Harley Quinn, before she became Harley Quinn. And you get to see her still being the therapist to Joker, which I'll talk about their relationship in a bit in the next topic, but I do like seeing a little setup of her before she becomes Harley Quinn. I really like that a lot. But I really enjoyed her in this film. We get to see her in the onesie jester suit. Oh my god. And I really thought that we would not, because they said that they tested a bunch of Harley Quinn outfits that I guess are from the comics and different iterations of her character throughout the years. And the jester outfit was one of them. They actually released a photo of her when she's going to put on her outfit when they're getting all suited up to go onto the mission in the film. She pulls out her jester outfit and she puts it up against her body to see how it looks. And I honestly thought that was it. They're not going to show us her. They're not going to show her in different outfits. They show her with the Joker in the onesie jester outfit, and I lost my mind. Oh my god. It felt so awesome to see this to come to life on screen. It was beautifully done. I really do think that. I have to applaud them for sure. But yes, Margot Robbie did a phenomenal job. I cannot wait to see when she pops up next. I bet you she's going to pop up in the Batman solo film next. I'm not really sure how fast they're going to get the Harley Quinn solo film or a Harley Quinn Joker film going, but I can't wait to see that, because I think Margot Robbie, in my personal opinion, did a great job of Harley Quinn in this film, and I can't wait to see more of that character, because the way they set her up was just awesome. I really like her portrayal. I was kind of nervous at first, because I was like, hey, she's not going to have the voice of Harley Quinn, the voice that we're kind of used to from the animated show and in the video games, the Arkham video games especially, but man, I think for what she did in the film, she did a great job. Let's talk about next the Harley Quinn and Joker relationship. Now, I will talk about Joker separately, but the relationship they built in this film was beautifully done. And I think that it can be appreciated by comic book fans, of course, that are fans of that relationship, but also I think it can be appreciated by maybe the not so comic book fans, because the way they just set it up, they first show Joker being restrained in the straitjacket with Harley before she becomes Harley Quinn, still being the therapist, and the way she just kind of goes along with everything. He says, I need a machine gun. And then the next thing we see is the place getting just corrupted, and there's people going around shooting people and all this stuff. And then there is Harley laying on the back of that that table or whatever, or that chair, and Joker shocks her. And that's where we get to see the flashbacks and all that. And then we get to see the Jester outfit, which was pretty cool. But seeing the relationship slowly build over time, and the one really particular scene where he says, will you die for me? And she says yes. And then he says, no, that's too easy, or something like that. And then he says, will you live for me? And then she says yes. So she basically just on her own falls off the side into the pit, into basically the acid or whatever that would turn her into Harley Quinn. And Joker was starting to walk away and was gonna leave her, and then he stops, and then you get to see on his face he can't leave her. So he takes off his jacket and falls straight down in that pit and pulls her out, and she becomes Harley Quinn, and he is so happy. He's laughing. It was such a good moment in the film to see her becoming Harley Quinn, and it was just pretty badass to see that scene, to see him to where he couldn't leave. He just can't leave her, you know? He has to go get her. He has to go get her back. So he falls in to get her. Another really crucial scene that I liked was part of the flashbacks, was the whole part of where Joker is in the nightclub and Harley is dancing over there. And then I forget what the character's name is, but the Common who plays this character shows up, and they have a little chit chat, and Common's talking about his girl. And then Joker goes off, oh, there she is. And then he starts talking about her, Harley Quinn, and then he whistles her over, and it's a play because he tells Harley, okay, you're his now, you're Common's now, go over there, and then she goes over and pretends, and he's like, I don't want no beef, and Joker's like, oh, you want no beef, you don't want no beef, you don't want no beef. The way he says that line where he goes down, up, down, that was pretty funny, and ultimately Harley knows what's going to happen, and Joker knows what's happening because Joker kills him. And then we transition over into the Batman sequence, which was pretty cool. Seeing them in the car, there was not really much footage, not really new footage in that whole scene, but just seeing Harley and Joker in that car laughing together before the Batman shows up was pretty badass. I do have to say, but I really love their development as a couple, because then when he does show up during the mission that the Suicide Squad are on, and he saves her, and then when she falls off the helicopter by accident because they get slammed and the helicopter's going down, and then Harley falls off onto a roof, and then Joker is like freaking out. He lost her, and that's when everything unraveled, and it was a very emotional scene for Harley. And then at the end of the film, when Harley and the Suicide Squad completed their mission, Harley is at an espresso machine, and then Joker and the team show up, and then he reveals himself to her, and then she freaks out, and then he says, let's go home, which implies Batman solo film or Harley Quinn spinoff or Joker spinoff film or whatever, and we get to see those characters again. But the way they beautifully set up those two characters, I really enjoyed that, and I can't wait to see their relationship develop more in future DC films, whether it's Batman or a Harley Quinn solo film or Joker solo, whatever. I'm game for any of them. Next up, we're talking about Joker. Now, I talked about this briefly in my non-spoiler review, but I do want to go into more detail a little bit about what he does in the film. So, he doesn't really do much, but I do want to briefly go back to the scene where he's at the nightclub. The way he just sits there, and he has that cane, and he says, oh, you're trying to sweet talk me. He's like, oh, it's intense, and his mannerisms and his expressions and the way his mood is, he flip-flops, and it is, and I said this in my non-spoiler review, and I will repeat it here, unpredictable. The Joker is unpredictable in this film, and that to me is the most scariest part about his character. It's not the fact that his mood will go all over the place, it's the fact that he is unpredictable, and he will just kill you in an instant, and he has no limit. Joker is crazy in this film, and some people have complained a little bit about this Joker not being really funny per se in this film. To me, I'm okay with the Joker being a little bit more dark and crazy and out of his mind. I think there will be some Joker-esque stuff that will be funny in the Batman solo film or whatever else he pops up in next. But I like the fact that this introduction just really shows how powerful of a character he is in terms of his power in Gotham City, and how high up he is in terms of the food chain in Gotham. He's definitely a man you don't want to mess with, or definitely a crazy man you don't want to mess with. Another scene that really stood out to me was the guard that's in the film that you get to see at the very beginning talking to Harley. He's at a gambling table. He gets pulled back into that room, and there's a bunch of guys standing around. And I knew Joker was coming because I recognized the scene from the trailer where Joker is talking to that guy in that chair. And Joker's not in the room yet. And when I was talking about, there's a scene in the film where I honestly felt scared, and I mentioned this in my non-spoiler review, where I said there's a scene in this film that I generally was scared of what the Joker was going to do because he wasn't in the room yet. And there was a bunch of guys standing around, and I'm like, I do not want to be this guy in this chair. I do not want to be this guy. Joker walks in. all blah, he goes blah 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 blah. All that chit chat's gonna get you hurt. He smacks the guy on the arms, and then he goes, and then when he moves around, just staring at his face but still moving, it's scary. I'm like, oh my god, what is he gonna do to this guy? And then he gets really close to the guy's face, like, and when after he kisses the Joker's hand, Joker's like, "I know you meant that," or something like that, and it was just like, what? And he says, "We're gonna be friends. We're gonna be good friends," or something like that. Unfortunately, the line, "I'm gonna show you my toys," was not included in the film. It sucks they cut that out, but it was a pretty good scene nonetheless to see the build up before Joker shows up, and then when he does, you don't know what the hell he's gonna do to this guy. Unfortunately, they don't show you what he does to the guy, but he must have did something to the guy for sure. And then of course the ending where Joker shows up to save Harley Quinn, I think that was a very strong moment because Joker finally knows where Harley is. He's going to go break her ass out, and that's what he does. As soon as she gets back, because I'm assuming they were not back long in their cells after the mission, that Joker immediately went and saved Harley Quinn. It just shows that relationship, and I cannot wait to see Joker again. In whatever next film he shows up. I'm assuming it's going to be the Batman solo film. I'm betting he's going to be the main villain. If not, he's going to play a pretty big role in that film. He has to, because it's the Joker, and the way they set him up in Suicide Squad was not enough for us as fans. We need to see more, not just for the fact, not just because we as fans want to see more Joker. It's because we also want to see more of his characteristics, because I think what they did show was not enough in my personal opinion. But we'll have to wait and see what happens next in terms of if he gets announced for maybe a Justice League appearance or a Batman solo film or a Harley Quinn movie, and he's going to be heavily involved in that, or if it's going to be where the ultimate cut or a extended cut of Suicide Squad will have about 10 more minutes of Joker, maybe. Then that would be cool to see how that plays out with more Joker added into the film. But we'll have to wait and see. What I do like what they did show, but I wish it was more. Next up, Deadshot. You know, when they first announced Will Smith playing this character, I wasn't really nervous. I was just wondering how this was going to be portrayed, because once they announced Will Smith, I thought, okay, Harley Quinn's going to be the second most important character, and then Will Smith's Deadshot is going to be the number one most important character. And some could argue that is the case, but I would argue that it's basically Deadshot and Harley Quinn's film, and then you can start trickling down. You know, it's Amanda Waller's film, then next up it's El Diablo's film, it's Rick Flag's film, and then you could say, oh, continue on down. It's this person's film, this person, this Killer Croc, and keep on going down. But realistically, it's a Deadshot and Harley Quinn film. In terms of backstory, setup, and screen time. And I think with what Will Smith did in this film as Deadshot, I think he did a pretty phenomenal job. Seeing him working at the beginning of the film, basically talking to this guy, you know, hey, man, you got to pay up or else I ain't going to kill this guy. And the way he kills that guy at the very end of that clip was pretty badass, because he literally had like 1 second to go and he still got the kill and got that $2 million or something like that. He's like, oh, you got to pay me another $1 or whatever, because you didn't pay up fast enough. You know, you call me. He said something. You basically intimidated the guy. Say, give me more money, or else I will not kill this guy for you. So the guy did, and Will Smith did his job as Deadshot in that scene. I kept saying Will Smith, it's Deadshot. I really enjoyed his character arc. I said that in a non-spoiler review. I keep saying that a lot. I'm sorry, but I did, and I think the character arc worked because you get to see early on, right at that scene where Batman shows up, that he will do anything for his daughter. He will. And that is a smart thing to do, because that's what Deadshot is. Deadshot cares about his kid a lot, and he will do anything for her. So I think that showing that early on makes sense, because at the end of the film, when he does have that small meeting with his daughter again at the apartment, it really showed that he's still trying. And yes, he did end up being a hero in this film, but ultimately he's still a bad guy. But just to see that he's just trying his best to be in her life and trying to help her out as much as he can under his circumstance, I think that really worked for his character. And then seeing the small moments of him reflecting on her and talking about his life and all that throughout the film, I think it really worked. And I really enjoyed his emotional things he did in this film. He was pretty badass, obviously, because he's Deadshot, at killing all those faceless, mindless goop monsters or whatever. That one thing where it's just him firing all over the place with the different guns he has and just taking out all these things. It was pretty insane to watch that, but it just shows how badass badass of a character he is. And I think that he's probably going to be a staple in the Suicide Squad films if they continue to do more of them, because he's a very good asset, and I think that he will work very well in this. Now, I do think he'll pop up in the Batman solo film possibly, but I think ultimately they're setting up for the Suicide Squad to have a sequel, a third, a fourth, maybe, whatever, and he's probably going to be the main focus of those films. At least I hope so. I'm not really sure, but I think it would work best for his character to be appearing in more Suicide Squad films for sure. So, round of applause to Will Smith. He did a pretty badass job in this film, and I can't wait to see what he does later as this character. But for what they set him up, pretty awesome. Amanda Waller, she is... God, she's evil. Amanda Waller. And I said this in my non-spoiler review. Once again, I said that line. I don't know why I keep saying it, but it's true. She is the perfect translation from the comics, the animated show, to the live action. She is evil to the core, and I like this little twist where the Suicide Squad was going into the city, and the way they were implying it, that there is a villain they got to take out. Turns out the actual thing was for them to extract Amanda Waller from her base in the city, and that was the whole point of the mission originally, was going in to extract her. At least that's what it implied, because that's what happened. And I really enjoyed that little twist there. But Amanda Waller, do not mess with Amanda Waller. It's like the Joker. Don't mess with the Joker. Amanda Waller, don't mess with Amanda Waller. Oh my God. This woman is pure evil. When I say that, I say it honestly. Pure freaking evil. She kills a couple of random interns or random people that are working with her in that little bunker once she's rescued by the Suicide Squad. She just takes those people out because they didn't have clearance. That was her reasoning for killing a bunch of people randomly, was because they didn't have clearance, so she just kills a bunch of people. Pretty brutal shit. I mean, I almost said Will Smith again. Even Deadshot said that was pretty brutal. Jesus. And it is. It's freaking brutal. It's horrible. But that's her character. Her character is that dark. Her character will do whatever she needs to do to get the job done. And it's implied in the film that she's been pushing Task Force X for a very long time. And since Superman is no longer with us, spoiler for that film, Batman vs. Superman, that Task Force X finally gets officially greenlit because there is no Superman. And the next Superman that does show up might not be Superman. He might be a villain or a terrorist. So you have to have something in place, and so that's when Amanda Waller swoops in. I got something for us. Task Force X. Let's use Task Force X. So that's what she did, and I really enjoyed her portrayal. I really do think, I was mentioning before, I do think that she's going to pop up again very soon, because that character is integral in this whole entire process of the DC universe. So I think she'll pop up in Justice League. Viola Davis did a phenomenal job, man, when you are supposed to hate this character. Like, in the film, you're not supposed to hate any character per se, unless you say the villain Enchantress. But realistically, the only villain you are supposed to hate, and for good reason why, is Amanda Waller. Okay, that is the actual villain of the film. I think in some way that is the actual villain itself. But she is evil to the core, and that's exactly what the character needed to be. I think they did a phenomenal choice casting Viola Davis. She knocked it out of the park. God, that woman is scary. She is just scary as shit. But I can't wait to see more of her, to see what she does. I think that she's not going to like the Justice League too much, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see where her character pops up next for sure. Next up I do want to talk about is Slipknot. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because, unfortunately, I was right about this theory. I never spoke about it. I think I did speak about it maybe once or twice, but realistically I didn't speak a lot about it, was that there's going to be a character in this film that will die very quickly. And the way that the marketing team has been showing it, it's Slipknot. Slipknot is going to be the character that the head will explode. Slipknot's head will explode because they're going to think that the detonators inside their necks are not real. And it turns out Captain Boomerang is the one that convinces Slipknot to do it and go ahead, and we're both gonna escape out of here. These things are not real. It's just a trick to get us to believe that if we try to escape, we'll die. Well, turns out they are for real. Rick Flag uses that sucker, and Slipknot is done. Oh man, it really sucks. I feel bad for the guy because I used to watch this guy on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. I really like that show, and he and I think his name's Adam Breach or something like that. The guy who plays Slipknot for like 2 seconds of the film. I really do like his I like his acting for the most part, and so I think that he kind of got shorthanded. I think that also maybe there were some editing choices where his character was cut out a little bit. Now obviously he dies, but I think that he probably had a little bit more development in the actual film, but unfortunately, they had to get rid of him. They had to get rid of somebody. They had to show the Suicide Squad, look, this is real. These things in your necks, they are real. So Slipknot was, unfortunately, the example of everything. And it sucks, because I was kind of interested to see what this character would do. But the way they marketed, that they kept using the same clips from his character. There was not really I don't think there was any real new footage in this film with Slipknot in it that you have not seen in the trailers or behind the scenes footage. I don't think so, because literally he shows up at the end like he does in the trailer, where he shows up and he comes out of the vehicle punching a woman in the face, and then he talks to Captain Boomerang, and then he starts grappling up, and then boom, his head explodes. Literally less than a minute of screen time, I think. That is horrible. Very, very bad. Oh, I feel bad. I really do feel bad for the actor. I really hope there's an extended cut with maybe like 2 or 3 more minutes of his character, but I don't think it's really going to change much. But dang, man, his character got the shit end of the stick for sure. Next to last thing we're going to talk about is El Diablo. Now, I saw him in the trailer. He looked pretty cool. I was really interested to see his firing abilities because I'm not really familiar with the character too much, but I was really shocked about his character development and what he does in this film, because it starts off he doesn't want no part of the Suicide Squad. You get to hear that he surrendered on his own after he was caught. But like, how did they get him? Oh, he surrendered. And like, well, why did he just surrender? He's a villain. And then you get to see this video of him basically just using his fire abilities, his powers, to just desecrate an entire yard of prisoners, and they all burn up and die. It's pretty brutal stuff. And then throughout the fighting and stuff, when they're actually out there in the city, he's not using his abilities. And then you see in the trailer where Will Smith, Jesus, I keep saying that, Deadshot says to El Diablo, come on, man, you got to do something. Come on, man, you got to do something. Come on, man, you got to do something. He pumps him up. El Diablo lets out the fire from his hands, burns all those faceless creatures or whatever, the goop monsters. And it's like, holy crap, intense. And then you get to learn in the bar scene, which is a great scene, which I haven't really covered, but you know it's a great scene nonetheless. He reveals why he gave up. He surrendered. Well, he did give up, yeah, because he killed his wife. But on top of that, he killed his kids as well. He had 2 kids, had a wife. He burned them all up in his house, and that's why he gave up on using his powers. He didn't want to use his powers because of this, and it was an emotional arc that I did not see coming. Now, I kind of figured that maybe he killed his wife, but he killed his family. He killed his entire family. And it was a very crucial turning point in that bar scene, because they're all looking at him and they all just, at first they didn't know what to say. Harley Quinn just says, you got to own that shit. You got to own it. And it's just a thing where, look, that to him, he doesn't want to use his powers again because of what he did to his family. And it was very emotional. And there's a line where people were kind of complaining, where he says to Deadshot or whoever, saying, I lost one family, I won't lose another. And I think the reason why he said that line in the film is because to him, he's been in isolation when he got put in prison. He barely spoke to anybody. He didn't have any interaction with anybody, no social skills. And he finally interacts with a group of people, and then he ultimately feels like he's connected to these people. Not much, but he feels connected to these set of people. So to him, he doesn't want to lose them. He himself fights the villain, the villain's brother, Enchantress's brother, and he becomes this ginormous fire tiki-looking creature with his abilities. He fights the brother, and he loses his powers, unfortunately. He's back to his normal self. They have a bomb, and they detonate it, and El Diablo dies. And man, it was hard. At first, when I left the film, I thought, well, where was El Diablo at the end? Oh, yeah, he died. it was a brutal moment because I didn't expect him to die, and I thought that with the bomb explosion that he would come back at the end and kind of surprise everybody. But that's too cliche. It's too obvious. If during the big showdown after the brother dies, that El Diablo randomly shows up and saves the day, but it was a very emotional arc for that character. I did not expect to happen, honestly, but it was good because he did save the day. He did help defeat the main problem that they were going up against. He did defeat the big issue, which was the brother, because the brothers are ginormous compared to Enchantress. So seeing him become that giant fire tiki being, that's basically his full potential, I guess, of his powers, was pretty badass. But he sacrificed himself for the Suicide Squad. So, um, you know, I did not see it coming, but I think that overall it worked for the film. But it sucks that we lost the character, but I mean, it sets up for the next thing we'll talk about, which is, possible sequel ideas. So we lost El Diablo, but that means we can have the potential of adding more characters to this team. So the last thing we're going to talk about, obviously we've already jumped into it, is the possible sequel ideas, plus characters they could add into the mix. Now, possible sequels, obviously, I think they should go with a villain that isn't going to be a part of Task Force X, because I think Enchantress was kind of set up to maybe be a part of Task Force X because she felt like she could use Enchantress with the whole heart situation Amanda Waller did. So I think that the villain should be set up that the villain was never going to be a part of Task Force X to begin with. This villain is on its own. The villain is not going to has no affiliation or doesn't know anybody a part of Task Force X, the Suicide Squad. I think it will work better. Now, since we lost Slipknot, and since we lost El Diablo to him dying, sacrificing himself, and since I guess we have lost Harley Quinn, she might pop up, she might come back in the sequel. Who knows? It just depends on how the story goes. But I think that the characters they could add into the mix, Black Manta would be cool. But I think that they might use Black Manta as the villain for the first Aquaman movie. So maybe not. They might want to keep that character just the Aquaman universe, that side of it. Deathstroke would be a cool addition to add into the possible Suicide Squad too. I think Deathstroke would be a great character. Yes, Katana uses a sword, but I think it'd be cool to see Deathstroke using his abilities because he is more of an assassin. That'd be kind of cool. Bronze Tiger would be a good addition. King Shark, which was rumored, because originally King Shark was thought of before they did Killer Croc, but the King Shark would have had to have been completely CGI'd. But since that David Ayer, the director, did not want to do a completely CGI'd character, they went for Killer Croc in the film instead. So King Shark would be kind of cool. And the last two I just threw in just because, Captain Cold and Killer Frost. Just some ideas throw out there to anybody listening who's a part of Warner Brothers writing team. Not really, you're not listening. But I think that they could just do this. I think that with a sequel, they could fix some of the issues that a lot of critics had with the film. I personally enjoyed the film, as you saw in my non-spoiler review, but I think that with a sequel, they change up the team in the sequel. They throw in some new characters. They keep some of the old, but they throw in some of the new characters to kind of switch it up and give us a more interesting mission besides this villain wants to blow up the world and all this kind of stuff. And there's a connection between one of the Suicide Squad members and the villain. Have it to where the villain is on its own, and then the Suicide Squad with new members, with old and new members in the sequel, go up against that villain and have a more interesting story. And when you introduce these new characters that are the new members of the Suicide Squad, give them some backstory, so we get to see kind of the same thing again from the Suicide Squad original, now being put into the sequel, with giving us these flashbacks and giving us some setup of these characters. I know they will, but I think it'd be cool to kind of do that again, to kind of continue the trend of the Suicide Squad franchise per se, where we have these flashback moments and these little details of who these characters are, so we as an audience who are familiar or are not familiar with these characters that are being introduced into the Suicide Squad as new members, for us to get acquainted and all that kind of stuff. But mainly fix the villain issue. That is my main point. And of course some of the editing and story choices they went for, but the villain has to be fixed in the sequel, or else I think Suicide Squad 2 might not do as well as Suicide Squad 1, if the villain issue is not fixed. That's my main concern about the possibility of them saying, we're making a Suicide Squad 2. Then my response to that is, make the villain better. Make it a better villain. And make sure that the editing choices you do are not as distracting as it is in the first one. I overall did enjoy the film, but there are some issues with the film. I honestly have to say that. It's not a 100% perfect film. It's not a bad, horrible film, but it has issues, and it really did lower the film a little bit in terms of my rating because I gave it a 7.5, and I stick with that. It could have been an 8.5 or a 9 or even a 10 if they did everything right, but they just did some things wrong, in my personal opinion. So fix the villain issue, fix some of the editing issues, and when you introduce new characters into the Suicide Squad, make them as interesting as Deadshot and as Harley Quinn was in this film. And give us a character that has the kind of emotional arc that El Diablo did that we didn't expect. Do that again with another one of these characters. I don't know which one you would do it with, but do it because it really worked in this film because El Diablo's arc was barely even touched on in the trailers, and it beautifully, in my personal opinion, was established and shown in the first film by surprise to a lot of people. So do it again in Suicide Squad 2 with another member added to the mix, and I think it will work overall. So there you have it, guys. That is my spoiler review for Suicide Squad. What do you think of all the spoilers? What are your thoughts about Suicide Squad? Spoiler away. Go into spoilers all you want in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys later. Peace.